Here it goes. Well, good evening, everyone. Welcome to this evening's event. We are talking about home-based solutions for weight issues for happy and healthy families. My name is Meryl Fury. I am the president and CEO of Plant-Based Nutrition Movement, and I am so honored and so excited to have this group of people to help us unravel this rather gnarly subject. Couple of little housekeeping issues. One is that there's a free digital download that you can access. Maybe somebody can put that in the chat for me. Our board of directors is manning the chat in all kinds of places. So let's see if we can get one of those in the chat for you guys. And it will come after this event is over. It will also be available once we post this recording on YouTube and a couple other places. So please, please, please register to get that download, right? It's that would be amazing. I think our panelists put together some great suggestions and recommendations, and you'll want to get those. They're amazing. They're really, really good. Let's see, is there anything else we need to say before we get started? I don't think so. Okay, so we are all here this evening. We're all lifestyle medicine, either providers or, as we could say, ancillary staff professionals, here to talk about the importance of lifestyle and the impact it has on how we view our bodies and live in our bodies and what we can do to be as healthy and live as long as we can, in particular for our children. Let me introduce our panel. First off, we have Michelle Loy. She serves as an executive committee member for the American Academy of Pediatrics section of integrative medicine and is a member of the Society of Integrative Oncology. She provides integrative medicine consultations at Weill Cornell Medicine and New York Presbyterian Hospital. And she works to solve a broad range of challenging clinical problems across pediatric, adolescent, and adult medicine. She's an assistant professor with joint appointments in medicine and pediatrics, and her clinical and research interests include nutrition, particularly culinary and botanical medicine, acupuncture, stress management, medical yoga, cancer recovery, and women and children's health. Her probably one of her greatest credentials, actually, though, is she's a mother of 5. So she's living quite the life, helping her children stay healthy. Next up, we have Dr. Wendy Schofer. She is a pediatrician, a lifestyle physician. She's a weight coach for the entire family, and she's the host of a podcast called Family in Focus with Wendy Schofer. She specializes in helping parents address struggles with their children's weight and body image, learning and applying the tools that remove the focus on body weight in the home, and the whole family builds healthier relationships with food, body, and self for truly lifelong healthy habits. Wendy is mother of 2. Carrie Bruno is a pharmacist and board certified in lifestyle medicine. She's working within an urban healthcare system in Wisconsin. She helps manage the medication issues associated with the whole gamut of diseases related to lifestyle choices and beyond. She's on the board of directors for Plant-Based Nutrition Movement, which is a nonprofit in the Chicagoland area, and she co-hosts the Growing a Healthy Child podcast, which focuses on the importance of child nutrition to build a foundation for child success. Carrie has not started a family yet, but she has a niece and a nephew whom she loves dearly. And last but not least, Lee Ettinger, also known as Dr. Herbivore, specializes in pediatric kidney disease and childhood obesity. He's located in New York State and has a telehealth practice for patients in New York and New Jersey. Dr. Ettinger also has online courses available for those interested in going deeper into family health and nutrition. Lee is a father of 3. My name is Meryl. Like I said, I'm a registered nurse, and I'm president and CEO of Plant-Based Nutrition Movement. I spent 30 years working in public health with the most disadvantaged people. And it's just really clear that we have to do something for our children before it's too late. I have somewhere between 3 and 7, depends how many kids are in the house at the time. Yeah, I collect other people's children. So we're all members of the American College of Lifestyle Medicine, and we're on a mission to help children of America stay strong and healthy and be successful. That's why we're here tonight, and we're looking at solutions to weight issues that you can put into practice at home. So let's take a look first just to get started. Let's look at where we are right now in America, our current situation. We'll start out with a couple of facts, okay? And our panel is going to fill in some blanks for us here. There are about 73 million children in the United States. Okay, first question. Maybe Dr. Wendy Schofer, can you tell us how our society handles food and body image currently?
How our society handles food and body image. That is quite a broad question. Thinking about it from the perspective of all the different things that we think that food means, what body image means, and where they come from. So I think about it that, food is, really an energy and a nutrient source. But I got to tell you, not everybody has the same definition. And I think that that's something that as we look at a societal definition, we may look at anything that goes in our mouth as a food versus there's also some definitions of, well, it has to have a certain, type of composition in order to, meet that definition of a food. So I would put it out there that as a society, we have so many different definitions of what that can actually mean. Now, you also asked about body image as well. And that's something that, as we all look at our bodies, as we live in our bodies, we have thoughts, we have feelings about our bodies. That's our body image, the thoughts and the feelings that we have about our own bodies. And we usually talk about body image in the context of having negative or critical, the negative thoughts and feelings about our bodies, the things that we're like, yeah, I don't like that part of my body. We have a very body focused culture. And so that tends to be something where we carry the criticisms and the comparisons either to others or comparisons to maybe an ideal that we have in our minds of what our bodies should look like. And so I think that put together, as we talk about the generalities of food and body image from a cultural perspective, we've got some challenges. We definitely have some challenges because of that focus on the body, because of having a very broad definition of what food can mean. And really, looking at, I'd look at food from the perspective of what can it do for me, bringing those nutrients, bringing that energy, and ultimately, how can we use food to invest in our bodies for ourselves and for our whole family.
Excellent. Thank you so much. I'm going to go around the room and ask a few other people. Dr. Michelle Loy, can you fill us in? How do you feel about that question?
Well, I will share with you what I call a wish from every child slide that I frequently will share with my patients in various group visits like lifestyle change. And this is how it goes. I show a slide with basically a request from a child, and it says, "Dear adults, when you greet me with a comment on my appearance, I am listening. When you criticize your own appearance, I am listening. When you praise or criticize others' appearances, I am listening. When you speak about food being good or bad, I am listening. This holiday and every day, Please give me the gift of shush. I might not know it yet, but it's the greatest gift you can give. Love a child and everyone else too. So in this heartfelt request lies my feeling that, yes, our society is very focused on our appearance, body appearance. But in touching this sensitive matter, I like to focus my attention on healthy habits.
Perfect. Thank you. That was I'll call it a poem. That reading, just so touching. So touching. Thank you. All right. Dr. Ettinger, tell me, what do you got?
Well, when talking about body image and food, a concern I hear is about encouraging eating disorders or triggering eating disorders. And when I first started to get into obesity medicine, I had concerns from parents and even colleagues saying, oh, you can't be encouraging a child to eat healthier. They're going to take it the wrong way. It's going to trigger eating disorders. That's dangerous. And so I really took it upon myself to try to figure out if that's what the situation was. Because in medical school, we have, on the first day of medical school, we learn a term, primum non nocere, which means first, do no harm. So I wanted to help my patients. I didn't want to harm my patients. So I really did a deep dive into the medical literature to try to figure out if advising a child to eat healthier was going to be bad for them in some way. And what I found was that there are a lot of studies about eating disorders and eating healthy, but unfortunately, a lot of those studies are on college white women. And notice I didn't even say college age women. These are literally women who are white, who are in college. Those were what the eating disorder studies are. That's a population that's been primarily studied. So it's hard to extrapolate from those studies to the general population, which is much more diverse and not in college necessarily. So there's not a lot of information, no, but there are studies out there that actually show that talking to a child about healthier eating can actually reduce the risk of eating disorders. For example, there's one study on some tween girls that looked at their unhealthy dieting habits, like that they were using laxatives or restricting food, skipping meals and things like that. And then these tween girls went through a healthy eating program and then studying them again at the end of the program and found that the incidence, the number of those girls who were doing these unhealthy kind of activities to diet was cut in half. So once they understood better about what healthy eating was, that they were less likely to be using these quote unquote unhealthy eating habits. So, and then the American Academy of Pediatrics in their new guidelines for pediatricians on how to treat obesity said, and kind of instructed pediatricians on how to delicately and sensitively broach the topic and talk about this topic with families so as to not trigger eating disorders.
Great. Thank you. So helpful. All right. Last but not least, Carrie, how does society handle food and body image in your view?
Yeah, so in my view, as Wendy mentioned, I think the relationship between food and body image is complex and very broad. I would like to believe that most people there's a growing awareness of the importance of healthy eating and physical activity, and many people strive to maintain a healthy weight and a healthy lifestyle, but often there can be maybe media or advertising or other individuals that maybe send mixed messages or promote maybe some unrealistic standards, and that might lead to a more negative body image. And the negative body image can maybe lead to, like Lee was mentioning, dieting and disordered eating behaviors. And so I think we're all here today to show how to maybe move towards thinking about it in a more positive light and show how healthy lifestyle behaviors can help and to promote more of a positive body image rather than focusing on the negatives.
Great. I think this is going to be a great panel. Let me just say, beautiful. Okay, so as a result, looking at that, the way that our society has sort of evolved, and yes, indeed, the sort of image, the messages that we internalize, especially our children internalize. And yes, as we age and we get into college age and all of that, yeah, it's still there. I remember, I remember when I was a kid, I had Barbie dolls, and that Barbie doll was like the most tyrannical thing in my bedroom. The idea that I was supposed to be like, I don't know, maybe 6'7" and have a waistline of a, 26-inch waistline. That's pretty daunting image role for a person to look at all the time. And it does play out in how we view ourselves and what we think of as beauty in this culture. So as a result, let's go into some statistics. Right now, what do we know of the numbers of children living with obesity and weight issues? Anybody?
I did my homework and I came prepared.
Okay.
Checking the CDC website earlier today, I have some statistics for you.
Thank you. I'll take them.
Okay. So in 2020, and this is actually pre-pandemic numbers, 19.7% of children have obesity. So that's like 1 in 5. But there's a wide variation based on race. So among Hispanic children, 26%. Among non-Hispanic African American, it's 24%. And among non-Hispanic white children, it's 16%. And non-Hispanic Asian children, 9%. And that was before the pandemic. And early data from the pandemic showed an actual increase in the rate of increase of BMI through the first year of the pandemic. So it's expected that those numbers will be higher as more data comes out.
Right. Yeah. I remember I have some family members, young ones, little kids, and during the pandemic, one of their favorite things to do was to call DoorDash and order whatever, McDonald's, call Walgreens and get a bag of candy and have it delivered to your door. I'm sure that didn't help. We are getting a question actually from one of our viewers. The question is, how is obesity defined? Who'd like to take that one? Okay, Wendy, I'm going to you because you're laughing.
Okay, that's not going to be fair tonight. I'm always laughing.
Okay, just this time.
All right, everybody. Now you know who's behind the scenes here. So, really, with the definitions for obesity, we're looking at basing that off of measuring the weight and then doing those calculations to the body mass index. And what we do with that information in the medical office is we translate that body mass index into percentiles. So if you take that, the percentiles mean that if you would line up 100 of similar items from smallest to biggest, okay, the smallest would be number 1, the first percentile. The one that's in the middle of the pack is at the 50th percentile. And then at the very top, there's no such thing as a 100th percentile, does not exist. It's the 99th percentile. Yeah, we totally lost one in there, but I can't explain that one. Anyway, that's just the way the percentiles work. So when we're looking at the definitions, overweight is taking the 85th percentile. So, at or above the 85th percentile for age and for sex. And then obesity is at the 95th percentile and above. And so it's something that is, based in those calculations and those measurements, and then kind of like comparing to the standard measurements that exist.
Great. Thank you. So right now in America, last I looked, we have close to 15 million children who are diagnosed as being in that 95th percentile of weight for height. So quite a few. And then I was doing my homework. There's almost 12 million that are overweight. Something to think about. And as Dr. Ettinger just said, it varies by race and ethnicity, which is certainly interesting.
Can I just add something?
Yeah.
That as Dr. Schofer said, obesity is defined as the top 5%. So how could we be saying that 20% of children have something that's defined by the top 5%? But the reason why we can say that is because that 95th percentile line was drawn based on data from children from the 60s and 80s. So the reason why we can say 20% now is we're comparing today's child to children from decades ago.
Yeah.
It just shows how the obesity epidemic has progressed.
Yeah, definitely. Could one of you, maybe Michelle, Dr. Loy, maybe could you tell us what you see? I know you work with a broad range of illnesses and age groups. Can you tell us what you see of trends in chronic illness among children?
Yeah, that's one reason why I mid-career took a little pivot into integrative medicine, because I was seeing so much chronic disease, much more than when I was a young doctor more than 20 years ago. So definitely we're seeing more overweight, more obesity, more metabolic diseases, more type 2 diabetes that we didn't see so much in the past. And sometimes some of these metabolic diseases are not obviously related to weight. There are other endocrine issues, even PCOS, polycystic ovarian syndrome, a lot of different, and even things like chronic pain and, migraine and then a lot of emotional and behavioral conditions, including anxiety and depression. So, whereas in the past we didn't see so much of these kind of chronic diseases, a lot of my pediatric and adolescent patients are starting to get the diseases that we used to really only see more in older people, hypertension, things like that. Hyperlipidemia is another one, increased lipids.
Yeah. So for those of us who are not medical people, that's high fat in the blood, high cholesterol, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's kind of shocking, really. All of us have been in healthcare for some time, and to know that the trends for all these illnesses are just going up like this, it's upsetting, scary, a little bit painful to watch. At least it is for me. You mentioned, Dr. Lowe, you mentioned a little bit about changes or what you've seen in emotional and behavioral illnesses. Does anybody have any numbers on what that looks like, how that's changed over time? I know we've seen increase in autism, increases in ADHD, all kinds of things. Anybody have those numbers?
I have some numbers.
Okay, thank you.
Well, this is going back, the CDC has records down to from 2007 that 13 to 20% of children experience a mental disorder in a given year, and that's 1 out of 5. And autism numbers in 2020 were 1 in 36 children, which is 2.8% of kids, and that's a 3-fold increase since 2006, when it was 1 in 110 children. So just from 2006 to 2020, the numbers of autism have increased 3-fold.
Wow. Well, this is exactly why we're here, is to start doing something to make a difference with this. It doesn't need to continue to go up at an angle like this, right? There are actually things that parents, caregivers, grandparents, aunts and uncles, big brothers, big sisters can do to help to change the tide, turn the tide on this. So Obesity is actually a growing public health concern. That's kind of my area is public health. For all of the reasons that we just mentioned, right? Obesity runs along with these areas. It's not that obesity is predictive of these other things, but they certainly are closely tied, closely correlated. Most recently, the American Academy for Pediatrics came out with its first set of guidelines for how to manage for doctors, for how to manage childhood obesity. So we want to talk just a little bit about that, not a lot, and then we're going to do a deep dive into the solutions because that's what we're here for. So which of you would like to go into? I know Lee does his studies. Go into a little bit about the current recommendations for obesity management in children. You can take it, Lee, if you're ready.
Okay, so right in January 2023, the American Academy of Pediatrics came out with the new guidelines, and they recommended 3 interventions for pediatric obesity. Number 1, interventional health, behavior, and lifestyle treatment. So that's working on diet and lifestyle, although they prefer not to use the term diet. They don't even prefer the term weight management. They just want intensive health behavior changes. That's one path. Another path is anti-obesity medicines, which were also approved earlier this year for children down to age 12. And then in some situations, even bariatric surgery for the teens with severe obesity. So those are the 3 options that are now considered standard of care for pediatric obesity.
Okay. You guys chime in as lifestyle medicine professionals with lots of history behind you. What comes up for you when you hear that these are the current recommendations for kids and families struggling with weight issues? You want me to just pick somebody? I'll pick Carrie.
Yeah, so for me, it's a little bit disappointing to hear that there maybe isn't as much of a focus on lifestyle, and we're starting to talk about medications and long-term medications and long-term surgery options. We know that lifestyle can play a huge role in in preventing chronic health issues and even reversing them. So I wish that, and that's why we're here, but I want that to be more of the topic rather than focusing on medications and surgery in children. It's sad that that we're in the position where we have to jump straight into medications and surgery.
I'll build on to this. So I got to tell you, I was really struck by the phrasing. So really giving a nod to lifestyle, but it's more of that standpoint of this intensive, lifestyle health changes. And throughout the guidelines, they're talking about how hard it is, and I think it really doesn't do a service to folks that are looking at their existing lifestyle, because lifestyle doesn't mean that we're having to change everything. Like what we're doing, how we're living right now is our lifestyle. And so I think that painting that picture that it needs to be intensive, that it's very hard to do, which is the way that it was put in the document about talking about, the number of hours per week, the number of, the number of contact hours for like 26 weeks and saying, oh, this is hard. Well, that's not actually helping to look at, well, there's a lot of little steps that are being taken all along the way. And we are living our lifestyle every single day. And so acknowledging where we are starting from before we get to all of the changes that need to be made, and painting the picture of it being something that is a very hard, tall hill to climb. I think that there's a lot in the framing that could be done.
So true. Really well said. Dr. Loy, your thoughts?
I see a continuum of patients with lots of different conditions. So could there be somewhere out there a patient that where they could potentially benefit from some of, let's say, medication, or I really haven't seen surgery that much, but say, even in those kind of cases, which are probably very fewer, lifestyle medicine and lifestyle changes are super important. And so I think that it's not 1, 2, 3, it's 1, 1, 1, 1, 1 all the way through. This behavioral intervention is important. And I have adult patients who have had bariatric surgery a long time ago. And actually, if you look at their BMI, it's pretty low right now. But we still, until we work on the lifestyle and behavioral aspects, including developing a positive body image and all of that, the real healing cannot be completed. So I feel that it's, as I mentioned, it's the health behavioral intervention goes all the way through. And as was mentioned, depending on how, if you want to call it intensive, but that's one way of describing it. I mean, we have data on this for a lot of different conditions in lifestyle medicine. To reverse requires a little bit more than, prevention and treatment. So that's,
Said there should be more steps before. I'm reading the statement at the bottom. Yeah, there should be a lot of steps before medication and surgery, and I think that is sort of outlined in the guidelines, right? But it's as Dr. Schofer said, it just is framed as difficult or challenging. Yeah.
And I would agree with Dr. Schofer. It is not difficult if you have the skills. It is a fine balance, but if you have the skills and the support, it's not hard, because once you make a little change and you see the benefit, it just snowballs. And we know that if you just, lots and lots of studies, if you just reduce even in adults, I wouldn't say in the kids, but let's say in adults, 5% of weight, for example, in adults, the benefits to blood pressure and all of the other components, it's drastic. So we're not talking about cosmetics. We're talking about just, really measurable health benefits.
Great. Carrie, as a pharmacist in the room, can you tell us a little bit about the medications that are now available and actually being prescribed for children for weight loss?
Yeah, for sure. So the guidelines specifically mention about 6 or 7 medications. Now, I will start by saying the area that I currently work, I don't see a lot of children. So I can tell you all about the medications, but as for the actual use of them, some of the other panelists may see this in practice more often than I do. But one of the main medications is semaglutide, which is the generic. It has been approved under the name Ozempic for adults with diabetes. And it recently gained approval for chronic weight management in children, adults and children 12 and older. And it's now branded as Wegovy. And so it works similarly to one of our natural appetite hormones to help us eat fewer calories and lose weight that way. It has some pretty serious side effects, though. It actually has a box warning, which is basically the highest safety related warning from the FDA, meaning that there's a major risk of this side effect. And the box warning is for risk of thyroid tumors. And unfortunately, it has been shown to occur in mice and rats in studies. And it's unknown that if it actually is caused in humans. The human relevance of the data has not been shown and determined. And it can also have some pretty severe side effects on other parts of your body, such as your kidneys and pancreas and gallbladder. And one other main thing is it's not recommended for use in pregnancy. It can have major effects on the fetus, such as like structural abnormalities, alterations to growth, and early pregnancy loss. So the manufacturer actually recommends stopping it 2 months before planned pregnancy. So if we're talking about children, 12, 13, even young adults that are of reproductive age, that's something to consider. They're going to likely need to be on these medications for the rest of their life. And they will likely at one point have to come off of them if they decide to have a family. One of the other medications is orlistat. This has been approved for a little while. It has also 2 names. Xenical is the first one, and it's a prescription. And Ally is the other name for it, and it's over the counter. This one works basically by preventing certain enzymes in the body from breaking down fat and absorbing it. So about anywhere, depending on which Medicaid or the brand or the generic that, or the prescription or the over-the-counter that's used, it can prevent the absorption of anywhere from 1/3 to 1/4 of the fat that is eaten. And as you can imagine, if you're not absorbing the fat, it kind of goes straight through, which can lead to some pretty unpleasant side effects and greatly limit its tolerability. And another thing to mention, if we are preventing the absorption of fat, then fat-soluble vitamins and other nutrients can be reduced. The absorption of those can be reduced as well. So this can cause some nutrient deficiencies if not taken into account. And then the next medication is phentermine, which some may be already aware of this. It is FDA approved for adolescents 16 and older. It works similar to a stimulant, so it has effects similar to like amphetamines, and it affects neurotransmitters in the body that work to increase energy, reduce appetite, and increase metabolism. This one can have some serious side effects as well, and is also not recommended in pregnancy. This one also is one of the only ones that is only approved for short-term use, so maximum 3 months. And this is due to the potential for addiction and dependence. So this is one that would likely not be used for long-term. And it can frequently be combined with a different medication called topiramate, which can be used for other indications such as headaches, migraines, and seizures. Commonly prescribed for those. And its mechanism regarding chronic weight management is pretty unclear. We don't exactly know how it works, but it's thought maybe it works along the lines of appetite suppression. So that might be one of the other ones. And then one of the last ones is metformin, which is commonly prescribed for diabetes. And it can also be used for other conditions as well, like polycystic ovary syndrome and prevention of weight gain with certain other like antipsychotic medications. So in situations where children have other health conditions in addition to obesity, this would be an option. And it reduces blood sugar by multiple different mechanisms. And it can also have some serious side effects. So overall, the guidelines and the manufacturer recommendations suggest that if any of these medications are to be used, It's always in addition to lifestyle changes such as diet and exercise. And unfortunately, most of these medications have not been around long enough for us to really know what the long-term effects are. And some of them haven't really been tested that well in children either. So with the short-term data that we have, some of the serious side effects are possible. And because most of these medications are going to be used for long-term, these side effects are going to be more common the longer that longer they're used. So overall, the majority of the medications will be used long-term. So it's really needs to be, it's not a decision that you want to make lightly. These medications do have a place, but it needs to be in combination with lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Perfect. Thank you. Very good. So we had a question come up. Right. There's no box warnings on fruits and vegetables. We did have another question come up about how do the medications affect the body's metabolism over time? There it is. Over time, what impact do these medications have on your natural body metabolism? Let's keep this like a really succinct, short answer because we have a lot to go into about how to resolve these issues.
Yeah, so metabolism over time, I mean, it can definitely affect a lot of different areas in your body. So, I mean, I don't have exact mechanisms because some of that is not well known, but these medications are strong, and it's definitely not something to be taken lightly. They can have some serious long-term effects, and most of them we don't even know yet.
And what happens when the medicines are stopped, Carrie?
Yeah, so that's why I mentioned a lot of the guidelines in particular, and even a lot of the manufacturer recommendations state that if these are stopped, the weight will come back. So that is why they recommend combining it with lifestyle changes, because until you get the behavior changes and your mindset around food changes, you can take a medication, but if your eating habits don't change, then it's not going to have as big of an impact.
Right. And certainly not for the long haul.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. All right. So now there's also the surgery part. And maybe Dr. Edinger can tell us a little bit about what happens with the surgery, and then we're going to go into the other section.
Yeah, the American Academy of Pediatrics, when they came out and said the surgeries recommended, they were quoting references out of Saudi Arabia, who's been doing surgeries on teenagers for up to over 10 years, and finding that they're safe and effective in the weight loss, and also comparing to adult studies that show that the weight comes off. Unlike the medicines, though, it doesn't always stay off if people don't change their habits. There are workarounds, even with a small stomach, to that over time, sometimes the weight does come back on, but considered safe and effective. But my patients who have had it, it is a struggle. It's almost changing one problem for another, in that you have to be very careful that what you're eating, since it is a smaller amount, gives adequate nutrients and vitamins and minerals and calories for you to still have energy. And so it's almost trading one problem for another, that you still have to think about your food. You still have to be very mindful without overeating, because it can get very uncomfortable when you're filling up that small stomach, and people can still have problems with vomiting or something called dumping, where the stomach empties rather quickly and makes people feel very uncomfortable also.
Okay. So clearly the medications and the surgeries are not the only answer, and maybe not even the best answer. And they always seem to need lifestyle changes in conjunction with them if they're going to be successful over the long haul, right? So it indicates that we really need to take a step back and sort of look at how we view our bodies, how we eat our food, our relationship to all of that from a totally different perspective. So that's what we're going to go into now, right? So we talked a little bit about what is food. We started on that. Dr. Lloyd, do you have that graphic about what is food and
Yeah.
why we eat?
Yeah. So I have this diagram that I often show to my patients. It
I don't know if you can put it up on the screen. Can you share your screen? I don't know.
um, hmm, let's see.
Maybe not.
It's part of my email. Yeah, I don't know how to do it just that one.
That's okay. That's
But
right.
it's in the shape of a star, and it follows the 5 elements in Chinese medicine. So there's the fire, the earth, the metal or gold, the water, and the wood. And it talks about why do we eat. So starting on the wood, we talk about food as fuel or energy. That's what we talked about at the beginning, like giving us the energy we need. But food is also fun and pleasurable. So that's the fire. And food is also connection and community, which is earth. And there's also an element of ritual in food, which would be the metal. And then the water is self-discovery or mindfulness. So there are a lot of reasons why we eat. And I think this is one aspect of when I approach developing a positive relationship with food, it involves all of these aspects, not just food as energy or calories or nutrients.
That's actually a fun exercise to do, is to write down all the reasons that you eat when you're not hungry. I've done that. There's probably about 30 or 40 reasons I can come up with. I'm bored, I'm tired, I'm lonely, I'm at a party, somebody cooked it for me. It's going to go bad. I don't want to put it in a container. I can go on and on. All kinds of reasons we eat that have nothing to do with being hungry or any of all kinds. It's a funny exercise. I encourage anyone to take it on. So knowing what food is and closely connected to that, why we eat. What do you see as the impact of our eating patterns, what we choose and how often and all that? What is the impact of our lifestyle and eating patterns on health? Maybe Dr. Schofer? Oh, I think you might be muted.
That's what I get for muting, just in case my dogs are in the background. So, okay, I apologize. Could you please repeat the question?
Sure. What is, sorry, I got distracted. Somebody's over here asking a question on my cell phone. What is the impact of lifestyle on health, our eating patterns? What is the impact?
Oh my goodness. So, I mean, really, I see that the choices that we make each and every day, I mean, how we live our lives, that is our lifestyle, and that's how we create our health. Health is really a personal determination, but it's also a personal investment. How it is that we are eating, moving, sleeping, how it is that we're investing in ourselves, acknowledging that every single day we're being depleted. Stress, the demands of life. I mean, just even, metabolism and, things that, just normal movement and things wear and tear in our body. I mean, that's a normal depletion. How are we investing in ourselves? And I think of the different aspects of lifestyle, that there are many different ways that we can invest in ourselves, looking at the type of nutrition. So the type of fuel that I'm in, that I'm eating, to invest, the type of movement, what's feeling good to my body, how it is that my body can feel good with that movement, the type of sleep that I am getting, the restful sleep, definitely enough. I did not realize throughout all of my medical training that I was chronically sleep deprived until I finally had the opportunity to take a nice long break. I realized I actually need 9 hours of sleep every single night. That's why I'm always talking to you all about being past my bedtime. Every single time. I know that that's what I need to truly invest in myself. And that is a lifestyle choice that I put that priority way up there, 9 hours of sleep. So, you know, when you can call me tomorrow morning, 9 hours after we break tonight. But then also looking at, you know, stress in our lives, how we're managing that. And I think most important, especially as we're talking about kids, the connection, the social connection that we are creating within a family, within a community, and how that is a part of the lifestyle that we have. Thinking about, you know, kids and their different activities that they have. It's a big part of what is influencing their growth and development as children. Same thing applies for us, by the way. As adults, we don't outgrow that. So I see that all being, you know, really related with the lifestyle, you know, we can say choices, but just the different things that involve our lifestyle. They're the same things that basically involve and help us create the health that we want to live.
Yeah, so true. So we're going to jump because we're going to jump into like actual solutions. I think we've pretty well outlined the problem. I think everybody understands, right? We're at a crossroads. We're beyond the crossroads, actually. It's time to turn back and start making a difference for the health of our children. Let's look at what are the home-based solutions that we can implement. So we're going to look at this from the point of view of our relationship to the different aspects of health. And I'll say them so upfront so that everybody understands what we're talking about, and then we can go into the solutions. These are not in any order of importance or hierarchy. This is just 6 facets that we look at when we're looking at lifestyle medicine. So stress management and how we handle stress is 1. Food and nutrition clearly is 2. Number 3 is some form of physical activity. Number 4, supportive, healthy interpersonal relationships. Number 5, avoiding toxic, risky, and addictive substances. And number 6 is, like Dr. Schofer was just saying, the importance of restorative and real sleep. So those are the 6 aspects. Let's see what we need to know about those so that we can actually give and create for our children a foundation of real health and healthy body habitus. So let's go with Dr. Loy.
So do you want me to address all of those 6 pillars or
Or
just
anyone.
whatever I want?
You could just go with anyone. Choose your favorite.
Well, I love culinary medicine, botanical medicine, nature medicine, food, nutrition. So I'm going to just like go there.
Go ahead.
I'll show you how I include it in my practice. So, okay, for sure, I definitely talk about a plant-forward, anti-inflammatory diet. I mean, today I saw a bunch of patients. Every patient I started with that. Definitely. Fruits and vegetables. I love talking to the parents about involving the children from cooking to shopping, making it very creative and fun. So with my own children, I've done this, what do you call it? The reality TV show, they call it Chopped. So
Yes.
I've given them, 5 or 6 different ingredients that they'd never seen, or, I remember they did a carrot deluxe one time. I gave them carrots. Sometimes I'll give them, unusual spices, or one time I think I gave them a rose, dry rose, and see what they can do with it. And generally when they make it, they're going to be wanting to try it and eat it. And one time they actually served it to some of our guests. I remember that. So, and then getting them involved with even growing the food. So whether you're sprouting or take a little, I mean, if you have a little, even a small garden or a container garden, small container garden, or, like a herb pot. I usually encourage my physician colleagues or physicians in training to just, put a little pot of rosemary or basil on your desk instead of giving the kids lollipops. Let them choose a tea bag, or pick off a little bit of the plant and talk about how you can put those herbs and spices in your food or in water to make really fun drinks. I've done like hibiscus tea with butterfly pea flower, so it's like a pink with a purple, and with some water. If you add some lemon acid to it, it makes a beautiful color. It's really fun. It's like art, and it's delicious and good for you. So these are kinds of things that these are kind of how I involve all of that. And then you can use like herbal teas, or link that with either journaling, or like a mindful breathing, or it just even like the ritual of making some tea and sitting down together and talking as a family, just a few minutes, like before bed. These are all ways that I include food broadly, whether it's what we eat, or even in like aromatherapy. Today I showed a patient the aromatherapy diffuser. We put some lavender and bergamot in it, which is a citrus, and that was we use that as a way to calm them down. Or even like in an Epsom salt bath, I'll say you can use some essential oils. So these are kind of how I use food and both botanicals and culinary medicine. A few examples, I guess.
That is just so beautiful. Not long ago, I was in a conversation with a chemistry teacher, and she told me that anything you put on your skin can be found in your blood within 26 seconds. So being in a bath with Epsom salts, or, having essential oils on your skin is really very powerful. Just for that reason, it penetrates through the breathing it in, smelling it, and having it on your skin. That is so great. I want you to be my doctor. That sounds like something fun. Really good. All right. How about Dr. Ettinger? Which of those would you like to talk about?
When you start calling on doctor, I don't know which way you're going to go.
Oh, yeah, I know. I
could
know.
be
Like
any,
that.
But so for decades, the weight loss mantra has been to eat less and exercise more. But I find that a very conflicting message, a contradictory message, because when you're eating less, you don't have the energy to exercise more. And when you're exercising more, that stimulates your appetite, and then it makes it hard to eat less. So I kind of changed that around for my families that I'm working with, to eat more and get better rest. Because I want them to eat more fruits, vegetables, starches, whole grains. These plants have high fiber and high water content and are less calorie dense. So you can fill up and not feel deprived on these lower calorie density foods that can give you a lot of nutrients and antioxidants and all the good stuff like that, and fiber for our microbiome. So filling up, eating more, so that you don't feel deprived, and so that you have a lot of good energy, and then getting better rest. Because as Dr. Schofer said, sleep is so important. And when we get a good night's sleep, that makes us feel fresher for the next day. And there have been studies that showed that the next day after a good night's sleep, we make better food choices, and that we have improved insulin sensitivity just from a good night's sleep. And that can help with our sugar metabolism the next day. And if we're not tired, we're not reaching for those addictive kind of toxic substances that Meryl Fury said, like caffeine or other stimulants that we need to stay awake. So my message to the families I work with is eat more plants and get better rest.
Mm-hmm. Great recommendation. How about you, Carrie?
Yeah, so the two areas that I would like to connect would be the food and nutrition and supportive and healthy relationships. I think for parents, caregivers, adults in general, be a role model for the kids around you. If you want them to, maybe if you're encouraging them to make healthier changes, do it alongside with them. They really model what the adults around them do. So make those changes along with them, and it'll help them stick. And also, I would like to say, to get kids more involved, maybe ask them to try and help you stay healthy as the adult. They'll have more of a vested interest in, I mean, what kid doesn't want to see their adult healthy and happy? So they can take ownership of that and help their adults stay healthy, and while doing the same for themselves. So invite them to help you.
Yeah, I had a conversation with another medical provider some time back who said that he has absolutely 100% adherence or agreement when he asks the kids to help keep their parents healthy. There is no argument. Mm-hmm. Every child wants mom to be healthy, happy, energetic, willing to play, all of that. It's a win-win for the entire family. Okay, Wendy Chauffeur, it's your turn.
All right. So I see stress management as being like the unspoken addressed thing, although it's been, kind of weaved into our conversation all along the way. I think that the biggest thing to acknowledge is that our kids are stressed. Okay. They experience stress in their lives all the time, but let's also really look back. We were talking about how, so much of the statistics were done in, pre-COVID times, and how we've had, presumed increases, still waiting on the full statistics, but ultimately we're concerned about what has happened over the last 3 years of the pandemic. We have been totally stressed out, and our kids have experienced that as well. And I think that we need to give a big acknowledgement to that, because we really need to be able to understand what's going on for our children right now in their environment. And that's part of this whole discussion about looking at lifestyle. It's not about just coming in saying, well, we got to address, the movement, we got to address your food. We also need to understand the context of where the child is in that environment. And so I do remind myself all the time about the stressors all throughout the day. And then also reminding about how if we approach, weight, if we approach lifestyle changes in an indelicate way, we can actually be causing stress. And so as I remind myself, as with my approach to acknowledging stress management and bringing that in, I want to again remember, what Dr. Edinger was saying about first do no harm. Let's not be inflicting stress when we're trying to address it. So a lot of that comes into connection, comes into, building those relationships. Think about the way that connection with other people helps us to, decrease stress on a hormonal level, and just the way that we can feel it, that connection with other people. The other big thing that we've really experienced over the past couple of years in particular is loneliness. And so that contributes to that stress, because we think we're all alone as we're experiencing these challenges, whether it's something about health, about weight, whether it's about, school and work. That perceived loneliness contributes to stress. And so how can we start kind of coming in and addressing that, and especially in our families? I think that it's something where we can really kind of work with our kids in helping them see how they are not alone. Being there with them. A lot of times we don't even have to do anything. It's just a matter of being there with them, It's the magic of parenting. Sometimes it's one of those things where doing less is so much more. Saying less, just being there with them. And that really helps out with that stress management, along with, like we were saying before, good restful sleep. How that does wonders to also decrease the stress that we are experiencing. With the way that our bodies experience the stress cycle, there's a lot of different ways that we can process stress, that we can discharge stress. Sleep, creativity, movement, being together in a community. A lot of the things that we're talking about, they all come in together to be able to help us support and discharge and decrease that stress burden. And then again, so the next day we can feel more refreshed, more connected, and with that lower level of stress.
So good. So good. I just love the way these 6 facets of health, they come together. Like I said before, they're in no particular order, no particular hierarchy. One affects the next, affects the next, affects the next. Beautiful. It is, it's a magical thing that happens when we start putting these pillars of lifestyle medicine in place. It'll turn the health of anybody around. One thing I wanted to bring up too, just last week, we were working in a school, and I had the chance to sit and speak with a couple of the instructors. And one of the things that they said was that, as you mentioned, over these last several years, children have really been stressed and they've been alone. The usual group environment, the gang of kids palling around together, you don't always like them, but yeah, you're at least all together, your class is together, you get to know who your teacher is and all that. It hasn't happened. A lot of kids were, well, all the schools were shut down and kids were home learning, and for a lot of those kids it caused such a decrease in academic achievement that now they say the kindergarten and the first grades have never had a real school year. They've had just some strange, I don't know, very off experience of what school is, right? And for a lot of them, because they were home and maybe their parents had other priorities, or maybe their Wi-Fi didn't work, or they didn't have a computer that was reliably available, they pretty much floundered for the last couple of years, and that's for a lot of the children. So that's a whole nother aspect of stress, right, that they have to deal with on a daily basis as they try to achieve the level of competence in the usual classes. It's very challenging, and when the child is stressed, the parents are stressed. When the parents are stressed, the children feel it. It just goes back and forth. Definitely something to take a look at. I wanted to ask Lee, because in a previous conversation, we talked about sleep apnea and the impact that that can have, A, on rest, and B, on stress and academic achievement. Can you tell us a little bit about that, and how do you work with that in your practice?
Well, when we're talking about obesity in children, a lot of times we're worried about heart disease in 40 years or diabetes in 20 years. And these are kind of abstract concepts for anyone to be thinking about, let alone a teenager in that developmental stage. But what I like to work with the families is more immediate kind of benefits that they can have when changing what they eat. It's nice when the constipation gets better, or it's nice that the acne can get better too. These are things that do concern the teenagers. And one big one is sleep apnea. It's estimated that 60% of teenagers with obesity have poor sleep overnight because of the obesity. So when the weight starts to come off and they start to sleep better and they start to feel better and have more energy, that's an immediate benefit that they can see right away, and that can help reinforce, as a positive reinforcement, the changes that they're making. So it's nice to see immediate benefits. Sure, it's nice that less risk of heart disease in 40 years, but let's focus on the here and now also.
Right. Can anyone speak to other immediate benefits of changing the lifestyle and eating patterns in particular? Okay, should I choose somebody? How about Dr. Loy?
I mean, I can just say what patients have told me because we have like a 12-week lifestyle change. So this is with adults, but many of them have said that it doesn't affect their children, their spouses, their friends, their loved ones, that they've shared information with them. But I mean, you know, people tell me their skin clears up, their hair, hair is a big thing for some, and they feel like their hair gets thicker. They have more energy for sure. They sleep better. Many of them don't. They get released from their habits of like drinking alcohol as much because they don't feel like they need it, and they realize that they actually sleep better when they cut it out. I have a lot of patients that have experienced that. So yeah, and of course, there's blood pressure goes down. That's like very commonplace. The lipids go down and weight if they need to lose the weight. What else? And then like, you know, they'll tell me they don't get sick as often. What else? And like the menses often get regulated. I mean, we're doing some other things too, acupuncture, other things, but I mean, these are the things that people tell me. So and then mood is a big one, especially for my teens. You know, a lot of them have either some anxiety or depression or like an OCD or difficulty focusing, maybe diagnosed or not diagnosed ADHD. And a lot of that does improve quite a bit. So yeah, those are some things that people tell me. And I guess when I first was doing this, I was a little bit surprised. I'm like, wow, I would be like, wow, you know, I can't believe it. And now I'm like, I'm not surprised because it just happens all the time. It's part of the course. And that's why I love what I do. I love seeing the little changes that people make and how it affects their life. I mean, it's great. Then they don't have to see the doctor as much. And, you know, they just, and they always say, oh, thank you so much. And I'm like, I didn't do it. You did it. I'm just, you know, coaching and along the way, encouraging you. I'm just cheering you on, but you did it, you know?
Yeah. I think anybody watching the screen right now can see all of us smiling, right? This is the beauty for healthcare providers and professionals. This is the beauty of lifestyle medicine. The working in a traditional medical practice where it's mostly medications and surgeries and treatments and more diagnoses and more medications and on for a long time is a real grind. But working with lifestyle and actually seeing improvements in patients' health, literally, you can watch it happen almost in front of your eyes. This is magical for us. Really, really, really good. One other thing that is an obvious change when patients switch lifestyle, you know, they do the pivot, you know, they go from eating standard American junk food, processed stuff, sitting on the couch, spending too much time on their screen, stressed out, all that. When they start to make the pivot, one thing that changes is the digestion, the speed of digestion. And by that, I mean constipation can be resolved. So important. So important. And a lot of our children are dealing with this from the time they start eating solid foods. They start having issues with constipation. So this is one area that really can make a difference almost immediately. Go ahead.
Sorry, I thought of one more.
Yeah.
Not a health one, but it's saving money.
Ah.
And there's data there too. There is some data there too, but people have reported cost savings. They save money, less processed foods. That actually adds up. You know, I start buying bulk grains and beans and you know, produce, whether it's fresh or frozen. Yeah.
Perfect. We have a question from one of our viewers asking, how do you deal with external influences like social media, advertising, and peer pressure when you're trying to make the pivot and get your children to come along? Any thoughts?
We do not live in a vacuum. I mean, this is part of that environment that we are living in right now. So much of the approach that I look at is working with parents to figure out what is the environment that you want to create in your home. What is that immediate environment around the kids? And acknowledging that we can't change everything else that's out there, the food that they're going to see as they're going through the checkout lines. We can have, definitely some degree of impact upon what kids are exposed to with different social media things, but yet also acknowledging we can't shut it all down. That's depending on how you approach in your lifestyle or in your family, but there's still other messages and things around with the school and the kids. So what is it that you want to create? Almost like a buffer in your life or in your life for your children. What is that zone? And so as we talk about like body image, what is it that you're modeling for your kid? Not telling them what to think or what to do, because Lord knows, we all know that telling your kids is the best way to make sure that they don't do it. But what is it that you're modeling yourself? And so what we're doing in our home is actually taking that moment to, notice if there's any kind of like size or slights that are being said about our body. Oh, I can't have this food because of. Noticing those types of comments that come up in our family and questioning it, challenging it, because they hear that all the time. The whole thing about, a moment on the lips, whatever on the hips, all that kind of stuff. That is not helpful. So calling that out and then actually offering the other side of it. Well, what is it that I love about my body? What is it that I'm grateful about? What is it that my body can do? These are the messages that we can, start, leaving the little seeds around our house to be able to, show the kids, to create a different environment where we are talking about what our bodies can do. And it may not even be at that point of, as we're talking about body positivity, we may not be there yet, but I have a body. This is what it does. I am grateful for, what I can do. I am grateful for what has changed compared to yesterday, or, last month. As we talk about making those little changes and how they all add up, noticing those, speaking them out loud, I think that goes really far to be able to help kids see the progress that we are making. Because it's very easy to see that bar that's been set out somewhere, as far as what we're all comparing to, whether it's on social media, whether it is some ideal about what we want our bodies to look like or to do. Well, what about just celebrating those steps and, hey, look at the changes I've seen. Look at how I've gained here. We talk about like the gap and the gain. If anybody has ever read that book, looking at the gains that we make as opposed to that gap between here and some ideal. We can do that. We can model that in our families.
So good. I can't tell you how grateful I am for having this conversation with you guys. This is just so powerful. One of the things, Wendy, that you're talking about, the difference between the gap and the gain. So I've never been an exercising kind of person. I've got all kinds of reasons and justifications and rationalizations for that. But, so lately, though, I've taken it on. And what I notice is it really does not do any good at all to compare myself to some Olympic athlete or somebody. Like, I love watching running, right? Sprinters. I think that is they run like gazelles. Oh my gosh, it's so beautiful. if I have terrible knees, if I run too far, I'm going to fall over and hurt myself. So I can't compare myself to that. But what I can do is compare myself to myself, right? So that I have made a gain in the course of a month or several gains, right? That's about as good as it gets in the world of comparisons for that. We also talk about non-scale victories in some cases, right? That a lot of what we're looking at traditionally in weight management and weight issues is what happens when I get on the scale. Oh my gosh, I ate an extra potato yesterday. Now I'm going to be 2 pounds heavier than I think I should be, right? Or, you turn and look at yourself sideways in the mirror and look at, oh my goodness, my stomach is sticking out. All those kind of things, right? There, there are other kinds of victories that we can look at besides just what happens when we step in the scale. And those are called non-scale victories, right? So it could be the strength that you've gained, or that you're able to stand up straighter, or that you can walk longer, or that you can stretch. Maybe you can do something like bend over and touch your toes. I mean, there's all kinds of things you can do that you can measure as non-scale victories, and not let the scale become your tyrannical oppressor, right? I think that was so. I want to make sure that we have a couple minutes left. We do. We have maybe 10 minutes ish. I think 20 minutes. 10. I think we might even be over time. I'm not sure. But are there any other questions from the viewers? Be sure to put those in the chat. I am receiving them on my cell phone over here. So if you have any other questions, please let us know. I also want to let everybody know that just a reminder, if you filled in a form to get our free digital download, which is, I don't know, maybe 12 different tips from the panel about how to home-based solutions for weight issues, you'll get that digital download. You'll get a link sent to your email, and you can get the download that way. You'll also get a link for a recording. This will be posted on YouTube in a couple different places, I believe. So you'll get a link for that recording so you can review it and share it with your friends. So I don't see any other questions coming in. One thing I do want to touch on before we go is, as we've been saying, all of this stuff is connected. None of these issues actually stands, or these pillars, these 6 facets of health we're talking about, none of them actually stands alone. So just as a wrap up, could we talk just really quickly about the relationship, when we have a relationship with these individual facets of health, how that looks compared to how it might look now in somebody's life? So for example, if my relationship with physical activity, like I was just describing, is like, I don't do physical activity. I don't have a relationship at all with physical activity. How would it look different once we do develop a relationship, or find a way to develop that? And it could be in any of the facets. You guys jump in.
I'm jumping in. I'm totally jumping in on this. Okay, so I got to tell you, I think of our relationship that we have with anything is basically the thoughts and the feelings that we have about it. So, like you were talking about your relationship with exercise, and you said, I have no relationship with exercise. Okay. If you think about, as you say that, like, what is the feeling that brings up for you as you think, I have no relationship with it? I have a sneaky feeling it's going to be something that's going to be like, stopping everything right there. And I think of the feelings as really the motivation. It's the fuel for all of the actions, all of the behaviors that we have, all of the things that we do. And so when we think, I don't have a relationship with exercise, it's pretty much a foregone conclusion. You're making the case right there. Not going to happen. But what is possible to maybe even just kind of look at where you might want to shift it just a little bit, where we might be able to just slightly change the relationship. And I'm not saying I'm going to become a runner. Okay, that is not what we're talking about. But maybe what is possible for you? What is possible? Maybe instead of looking at it as exercise, how can we just maybe just even reframe it a little bit? What is possible for moving your body? What kind of thoughts do you have about that? And that's where we start to just get to shift a little bit, shifting that existing relationship to maybe seeing what is possible for you to create a new one. And I think that all of the different things that we're talking about across the board, it's all about little experiments. And that's exactly what I'm doing right now. Like just talking about experimenting a little bit. What maybe slightly different perspective do I want to try on? It can be like going into a dressing room. I'm going to try this on today. It does not fit. I'm going to put it back. Maybe I'm going to try on a different one. Maybe, I could find some time today to go walk my dog. Okay. Totally different thought, but that may be opening up a different relationship with movement and your body. Little steps.
May I contribute here?
Please.
We've just put so many barriers in our own way, and they're really based on myths. For example, I can't exercise, the gym's too far away, or the gym's too expensive, and we're just seeking comfort, and we don't want to be uncomfortable. But so we put up these myths and these barriers, but they're all in our head. And if you can either work through that barrier yourself, or working with someone like one of the doctors on this panel, that hopefully we can help you overcome those barriers and see that they're just barriers that you've put. I can't get a good night's sleep. This is due tomorrow. I can't get a good night's sleep. I have so many things to do. These are all just myths and just ways that we kind of fool our own selves to avoid discomfort and to gain comfort. But if we can just work through those barriers together, then we can get to the other side and make these new habits, these new lifestyle habits part of our life. And then there'll always be more barriers, but once you start knocking down barriers, there can be confidence and skills to knock down the future barriers too.
Beautiful. Great. Well, with that, we're going to wrap it up. I think we're just about to the end of our time. I don't see any more questions coming in. So last comments from you all. Let's start with Carrie.
Well, so one thing I would like to maybe mention, piggybacking off of Lee and Wendy, but the relationship to the 6 pillars. I think, so often we put those barriers into place, or we struggle in one specific area. Maybe choose one particular pillar or one particular area and make small improvements in that. And maybe your relationship to the others will grow. Maybe as you, for example, if you change your physical activity, then that might change your nutrition. Then that might reduce your stress and maybe make it easier to form supportive and healthy relationships. And, so just take a small step. It can lead to many others along the way.
Beautiful. Michelle, how about you?
Well, I'll follow Carrie on that. And that's why I think we've been using group visits a lot at my practice, because the community, like I would say, surround yourself, or at least connect with someone who has the same kind of view that will be supportive to you in making these changes. And I agree, choose one, maybe an area that you gravitate toward. Start there. And like Carrie mentioned, they all are interrelated. If you find something joyful, mindful movement that will help you sleep better, you'll probably choose foods that are more nutritious, not rely so much on some of the more toxic substances, and also, not have as much stress, have a sense of purpose. So Yeah, that's what I would say.
Great. Wendy?
I'm all about just asking what is possible for you. What is it that you see as the possibility as, you're just even participating this evening? And, as soon as we see that possibility, we can, start moving towards that. And so going back to, we're going to keep on bringing in the same themes here. It's about those little steps. And I think that so often we look at lifestyle as this big part. It's all encompassing. And we talk about 6 pillars. No. It's just looking at one step at a time. How can you make it just just a little experiment, a little step, and then see what happens? And it just kind of builds on from there. And that's also a part of finding those little wins. Those little wins add up. So, where do you want to find your little win? What is possible? And find the smallest possible step, because that's what starts all of it.
Lee?
One of the most important pillars may very well be the social connections and finding communities, because if you're trying to change what you eat or trying to change your activity level or trying to get better sleep, it can be very lonely to be the only one in your family or the only one in your friend group who's trying to make those changes. So I really suggest people to find a sense of community and find others that are trying to make these changes or have made these changes already that you could get some mentorship or some support with. But that having a sense of community can really help someone from feeling so lonely as they're trying to get healthier themselves.
Yeah, so true. So true. You guys, this has been a wonderful, wonderful conversation. I want to thank you all for contributing your time and your effort and your wisdom and your experience. You've made my evening. Thank you so much. I hope our audience has been able to glean just 5 things they could try. And really, it all boils down to one. Start in one little place and make one little step. It's like learning to walk. You don't run first, you walk first, right? Sometimes you crawl first, but that's where it starts. Remember, there's a digital download available. Please take advantage of that. Our panel, and me included, put that together with great love and effort just for you guys to enjoy and get something out of. I'm sure you'll find something on there of use. There's also everyone's contact information or their website or their e-courses or their whatever we have to offer, we put on there for you guys to take advantage of and come back and ask questions of us. We're happy to have that happen as well. Like I said, I want to thank our panelists. I want to thank our online producer who is back there running these, tickers and changing pictures and views and all that. Her name is Velyn Hawkins, and that is Vegan Visibility Production. She's doing an excellent job. Thank you so much, Velyn, for your support. Thank you, Plant-Based Nutrition Movement Board of Directors in the chat, sending me these questions. Gorgeous. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for contributing. We sincerely hope that you've gotten something out of this tonight. And our goal, you are so welcome. My pleasure, Laura Valero. Our goal, honestly, now this sounds crazy, but our goal is to reach 100,000 parents and children with this message this year. So if you can please share this message, share this video. 15 million children struggling with a preventable illness is unconscionable. Okay, me on my soapbox. 2 seconds. Me on my soapbox. It's unconscionable. We have to do something about it. They're looking to us. We're the adults in the room. We have to do something to save their lives. Literally, the CDC has decreased the life expectancy of our children 4 times in the last 5 years. We can change that. That's what this is about. Thank you again. You guys have a great night. Love you to pieces. We'll see you next time. Good night.